Everyone, it's Joel here. Welcome to today's daily pattern. We are carrying on in Acts chapter 21 from verse 1 to verse 16. And I'll think a little bit for a couple of minutes about how we help each other hear from God. There's lots of ways we hear from God in the Bible, through the Spirit, through signs, through using our minds. But one of the ways that we hear from God is from each other. That people speak to us things that God said, and that's what we see in our passage today. So in verse 4 we're told that there were some believers, and by the power of the Spirit they spoke to Paul. So they told him some things that God had said. And then in verse 10 we meet a prophet named Agabus, arrived from Judah, and he came to us and he said, this is what the Spirit says. So they heard from another person in just a few verses, but also Paul's own conviction from God that we hear about in verse 14. So you've got different people speaking to Paul to try and help him work out what to do. And that's a precious picture of what church could be like, where different people share with each other humbly and kindly, but saying, I wonder if God's saying this to you today. I wonder if God wants to encourage you with this today. Like, imagine if that was what was going on at Pattern Church, or the church that you're from if you're not from Pattern Church. If we were always listening to God, not just for ourselves and for our own stuff, but for each other. I remember, you can see my Swindon sign behind me, but I remember when we first drove around Swindon a few years ago now, where there'd been a mention of a potential church plant in this town. We hadn't met any of the diocese team, hadn't gone anywhere. There was no building in vision, but we drove around Swindon, Kath and I, with our two boys, and our eldest son, who would have been 6 at the time, or 5, he said to us, I think my brother and I would really like to live here. We hadn't told him why we were in Swindon. We hadn't said that we're thinking of looking at church planting opportunities, but he just spoke. And you don't move your whole family to another town based on one thing that your young son said, but it was just God speaking to us. It was one thing which then built up the whole picture of what God was saying, and now we know that we are completely called to be in Swindon, and there's no other town in the world that we'd be. But I wonder, how could you be listening to God for other people and really encourage them? There's been a few other moments in my lives where people have spoken words that have been so encouraging, or people have given a picture of something that has been just my story. And we can have some fun with this, but I'd really encourage you, almost like a little challenge today. Why don't you think, God, would you give me one picture, or one Bible verse, or one 90s song lyric, or one thing to encourage someone else in our church family? Like, you could be key in helping someone hear from God. So let's be just like the early church in this story, and let's hear from God for each other. Have a great day.